Thank you, everybody. We're really excited to be here today for this case study session. My name is Shabi Ormazabal. I lead product marketing at Eightfold AI, and I'm very pleased, it's my pleasure to have with me today Scott Tomtania, the VP and Head of Global Talent Acquisition at Cloudflare. Thank you so much, Scott.
Well, thank you. Very nice to meet you, Shabi. I feel like I've known Shabi for a while now because we share a lot of the same DNA in many places. So by way of introduction, I grew up in a place called Togo from West Africa. So if there are any Africans in the room, shout out to all of you. This is great. And my first language is French. Donc à tous les francophones qui sont ici, bienvenue à la conférence. Et voilà.
Oui. Très bien. Excellent. Well, Scott, we've been talking a lot over the last couple of days. I think it's really interesting. We do have kind of a bit of a shared DNA. Scott has an interesting background because he's been doing talent acquisition for almost 20 or 20 plus years now at some really interesting companies at Google, Facebook, Twitter. You might have heard of some of these. So I had a stint as well at Google Cloud. We didn't coincide, but for me, in some ways, even though I work in marketing, Google was a school of HR. They have a very sort of specific way they do talent acquisition, reviews of talent, reviews of feedback, all that sort of thing. So my first question to you, Scott, is you've had this amazing career in some very big, demanding tech environments. What are some of the things that you've learned in these companies, and how has that shaped your thinking into where you are now at Cloudflare?
Yeah, first of all, I feel like I've been very lucky to be at those companies. It takes a little bit of luck. And it takes a little bit of hard work. But the journey at all of those companies were similar in many ways. So they all have the intention to build a strong company. And they all believe that it starts with talent and skills. And every single one of those companies that I worked at, they all build their homegrown ATSs. They build their sourcing tools in many ways. They had a strong approach to talent engagement. They also they were very data-driven. They were measuring every little step of the way. And my thinking around data is essentially, you wake up every morning, you check the temperature. You wake up every morning, you check the time. Data is a valuable piece of information, and that's how those tech companies approached the talent acquisition. Now, at Google had a massive shop. They built everything in-house. It was really robust. At Twitter was getting started, and a number of the things that we did at Twitter came through things that we learned from Google and some of the larger tech companies. And then I was fortunate enough to go to Facebook before I landed at Cloudflare. When I joined Cloudflare, we were roughly around 400 people. Now we've grown 10x since then. And part of our growth, really, I can attribute that to adopting Eightfold early on. So I think I've summarized my journey, but anything else you want to drill in on, I can go there.
No, that's great. And I'll ask you more about Cloudflare in a second, but I want to go back to Twitter for a second, because you had mentioned some interesting things about some of the tech that was created there that was eventually spun out, and you were a part of that. It would be interesting to hear a little bit about that.
Great. So if any of you are watching it here or you're here, I'm sure you've heard of Lever, ATS. So it started off as a sourcing tool at Twitter. So I was part of the group that helped build that. Really fortunate. I didn't know that it would actually become a fully fledged ATS. So that's really fascinating. And at Twitter at the time, we were using JobVite as an ATS. We were spinning up a sourcing tool called Lever. And then we were looking to engage Workday as well as a platform. So that was in a snapshot was Twitter.
That's pretty exciting that you're both on the practitioner side of talent acquisition, but also kind of a cook in the kitchen, helping build some of these systems. Yeah. So for people who aren't familiar with Cloudflare, tell us a little bit about Cloudflare. What do you guys do? What's the company like?
So Cloudflare, we run an extensive portion of the internet through Cloudflare. We provide security, performance, reliability, and we are based all around the globe. We have well over 2,000 people in the US. We have 2 large centers in Europe, London and Lisbon, Portugal. We have a large center in Asia Pacific in Singapore, and we operate across all continents. It's there's a highly likelihood that your company's website or traffic runs through Cloudflare. And I have to add this is that it's been one of the most fascinating and amazing tech companies I've been part of, and I don't say that lightly.
That's amazing. And so when you were starting at Cloudflare, and it's been a while now, you've been over 6 years, I believe, and you saw this hyper growth from less than 400 to 3,400 today, roughly. Tell me a little bit about the tech stack that you built for talent, and at what point did Eightfold become a part of that?
Great. Really great question. So currently we use Workday. We also presently we use Greenhouse as our ATS. We use Talent Wall. Talent Wall sits on top of Greenhouse for us to be able to view data in real time and measure our pipeline and productivity metrics and ratios. We have Eightfold, and our initial use case for Eightfold was that it's a sourcing tool for us, and there's more to that. I'm sure we'll get to it. But in different parts of the world, we use localized tools and localized stacks. And one of them in particular in Japan is called Rikunabi. And the primary reason for that is you have to be able to find a solution for each market that you're in and where you're trying to build your business. And sometimes many of the products are very US-centric, and you sort of have to go out of your way to find something that works for each market.
That makes sense. And then you were telling me earlier a little bit about part of the journey with Eightfold was driven by the need for diversity. And you'd had experience of previous companies with diversity hiring. What did you find with Eightfold at Cloudflare that was useful or that helped you out there?
Great question again. So I've always been skeptical about anything AI, and I was a big skeptic of Eightfold. When I joined Cloudflare, we're looking for tools because we realized that we were getting tons of applicants and we had limited resources as a recruitment team. I'm sure all the high growth tech companies have felt that pain before. And so my recruiting operations person at the time introduced me to Eightfold along with other companies. And again, I wasn't the most pleasant customer or pleasant prospect to meet with. I think I asked questions. There was one point where I may have to apologize to that person if they still work at Eightfold. I left the meeting early and just didn't believe
You're
in
a
it.
tough cookie. You're tough not
I
to
was
crack.
really tough to deal with. Excuse me. But fast forward, we decided to go with Eightfold because it seemed like a good approach. I was worried that Eightfold would not be able to support us due to the size of the company at the time. But one of the things that impressed me early on, I don't think I've ever mentioned this, is that Eightfold was really in and was paying attention to us from the get-go, was very attentive to our needs. And they seemed like they wanted to build something for us. They were willing to do that. Anyway, that's how it felt. But what we did was, once we adopted Eightfold, we signed up to go to the Grace Upper Conference, and it's the largest female in technology conference. And we decided to upload and all of the attendees and also leverage it for the conference. And it was really an accidental find out. That's what we thought we were going to do with it. And through that, a small company like Cloudflare, we hired 5 people out of that conference. And that's a huge ROI for us. And if you've ever attended Grace Upper Conference, it feels like a war on talent. Every large company, tech companies there, large biotech companies are there, and we're all competing for talent. So I attribute that to Eightfold for being able to help us curate to the level of skill set that we're looking for more accurately, more precisely, so that we can engage them and have a lot of activities with the talent pool prior to the conference.
That's great. And I think also what was impressive to me when we were speaking was kind of the scale or the volume of the candidates that you have coming in. I think you gave me some stats about Q1, maybe 500,000, and now you said recently it was over 1 million applicants in the last quarter. So how do you manage that volume at scale, both to hire and to keep the talent going with communities and other areas?
Great question there. So we've been very lucky that we received tons of applicants. But at the same time, what do we do with those applicants? And the most reliable source for us so far has been Eightfold. And it's been being able to sort of narrow down the skill level that we're looking for in the product has been very helpful for us. The second thing that has helped is that we measure everything at Cloudflare. And we have our own dashboards in Tableau. We use Talent Wall to get a ton of data. But it's been very impressive to see that Eightfold's dashboard is almost as accurate as my TA dashboards. So that tells me that Eightfold is doing something right. So even down to the funnel metrics, Eightfold is doing something right. And